Welcome back, dear learners. Before the ad break, we did direct material cost and direct labor cost. We also touched on indirect materials and indirect labor as well. With me here, I have factory overhead costs. What are these? These are all costs that are incurred in the factory to keep the manufacturing section of the factory in operation. The cost cannot be directly linked to the manufacturing of the items. So factory overhead cost will not include your direct labor or your direct materials, because direct labor and direct materials, these are directly linked. So in the factory overheads, we need all those items that are not directly linked to the manufacturing process. Here are some examples of these. Number one, indirect materials. You remember we spoke about this, such as your cleaning materials. Indirect labor. We also touched this one, such as the labor of the factory cleaner or the supervisor. Depreciation on factory equipment. Remember the equipment that we're using in the factory. As we're using it, the moment it loses value, that cost, which we call depreciation, we will add it to our factory overheads. And then we also have factory water and electricity and many others that I've not mentioned in this class. We want to calculate the factory overhead cost. So to begin with, we start with the supervisor's salary. There it is, 2,500. Let's go and see again. We have the factory cleaner's salary, 1,800. So we also add it when we are calculating factory overhead costs. We also have what is known as indirect materials. We bring it, 3.5, we add it. Water and electricity that has been used in the factory, we also bring it, water and electricity that has been used in the factory. The factory insurance, 600, we also bring factory insurance, there it is. Factory rent, 3.1, we bring our factory rent here. And then lastly, the factory security, 1,100. You can see all the costs that I have been adding, they are not direct at all. You did not see direct material, you did not see direct labor. So all the costs that are not direct, we call them factory overheads. They must be incurred in the factory. That is very important. So when I add all these amounts, I end up with 13,800. That becomes my factory overhead. I'm going to move on now to what are known as fixed costs. Fixed costs. These are all costs that have to be paid to keep the factory running. The cost will not change no matter the number of units that are being produced. We call those fixed costs. And to get your fixed cost, we'll say factory overhead cost plus administration cost. All right? And here's an example. The salary of the factory manager and the factory rent, these are considered to be fixed cost because they go into the factory overheads. So we consider those to be fixed costs. I'm going to come now to a question where we're going to do some calculations. It says, the business has incurred the following costs: factory overheads, 13,800, administration costs, 11,500. Calculate the total fixed costs, the total fixed cost. We know that if we want to get the total fixed cost, we have to add our factory overheads plus our administration. So we now say factory overheads, 13.8, plus administration, 11.5. That will give you 25,300. That becomes my total fixed cost, the total fixed cost. Remember, These are costs that do not change. They remain the same regardless of the number of units produced. If we produce too many units, these costs remain the same. If we produce less units, these costs still remain the same. Hence the name fixed costs. Variable cost. What are variable costs? These are all costs that vary or change. Costs that vary or change in direct proportion to the number of units produced. So remember, we spoke about fixed cost. They remain the same regardless of the number of units produced. But with variable cost, if we produce more, this cost will also change. If we produce less, this cost will also change. So they change, they vary, depending on the number of units produced. And the formula to get variable cost, it is direct costs. You remember what comes into direct cost? We have two direct costs that we've spoken about. Yes, you have your direct materials. You have your direct materials. What is the other direct one that you still remember? Direct labor. And your direct labor. These are your direct costs. So we say direct cost plus selling and distribution costs. So these two give us variable cost. All right? These two give us what we call variable cost. For example, raw materials, that is your direct materials. Factory wages, this is your direct labor cost. This very same one here. All right. Let's see if we can do some calculations. The information reads, the business has incurred the following cost: direct material cost, direct labor cost, selling and distribution cost. So they want us to calculate the total variable cost, the total variable cost. Let's see if we can do that. To get the total variable cost, we will then say the direct material cost, which is 8.4, plus the direct labor cost, which is 3,200, plus the selling and distribution cost, which is 3,900. So we add these three costs: your direct material, your direct labor, and your selling and distribution cost. These three costs. The total therefore gives us 15,500. Once I get my 15.5, I have my variable cost. Remember, in your variable cost, it is your direct cost, and your direct is your direct labor, direct material, and your selling and distribution cost. Dear learners, you need to continue practicing these questions. The more you practice, the better you become. Thank you so much for joining me in today's class. I hope to see you again very soon. Goodbye.